Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Toward a Quality of Life. We're here in the month of May, early May, May 5th, in fact. And we're here to continue our deep discussions about many issues, in particular some more about the race for the presidency, not just talking about it as something we are doing this moment in time, but you'll have to excuse me. I'll have to change my position here as we're looking at a different camera. Thank you. We're here to talk again about many subjects and important ones. There are so many subjects that I could bring to you, so very many, and yet some of them are so critical, namely the problem of animals suffering, animals extinguishing at an alarming rate, our food supply extinguishing at an alarming rate, our environment extinguishing at an alarming rate, and the fact that this country, given all the comforts and pleasures and materialistic enjoyments that it now has, is not going to be this way forever, and the handwriting is beginning to show itself on the wall. So in spite of that, there are so many topics I could bring to you, a plethora of topics. We have to keep coming back to these because they are so very vital, they are so very urgent. And also in the mix of these, I'm going to talk about the current situation in the Democratic nomination for president. And yes, I am probably going to venture in, tippy-toe into that gentle, horrible area which I should be afraid of, which I have to go with great trepidation, which I may be foolish to even venture into, but I am going to touch on the race situation as well. So, that is to say, black race, white race. But first, we'll start with talking about it. Maybe if there's a way, these cameras, I can't keep following cameras as I'm thinking. Maybe there's a way to follow me or just have it set so that I'm not worried about where to look all the time. But anyway, the first thing I want to start with that I've started with before is plastic is so very not good for you. And recently there was a study or two that I heard of, not that I put much faith in studies generally speaking, as the procedures are far from what they should be in terms of purity and correct scientific method, generally speaking, and also they're typically supported by the groups that want the study to come out a certain way, so what use is that? That's totally not scientific. But anyway, as I've been saying, these plastics leach. They give off their chemical into the food, into your inhalation, into your skin. And a couple of studies recently actually said that the biphenyl A, which is a particular part of certain kinds of plastics, I believe it would be part of this kind of plastic, actually can be measured as in the food and in the fumes of the containers and whatever it is they're in. Those things can be detected as separate from the material itself, and so therefore literally harming you, as I've tried to bring home so many times. A retailer here in town, Whole Foods Market, has gotten rid of plastic bags, and I know you've probably seen in the news that a lot of other stores and towns and cities are considering, including I think the state of Massachusetts considering, I don't know if it's alive still, a bill that would ban plastic bags. So let's say no to plastic. You can possibly see the TV monitor. It might be too small for you to see it, but it says no to animal research and no to plastic. So I'm going to throw these out, which, as we throw them out, do not biodegrade, by the way, and there are places in the ocean as big as the state of Rhode Island with these plastics bobbing in them, some of them very small. Animals dive down, they eat them, they cut them open, they find their stomachs are full of these pieces of plastic that are bobbing in the ocean. So just remember, when you throw them out, please recycle, but we should never have them to begin with. We should go back to glass. So this is what we say to plastic. We say no to plastic. There it goes. Goodbye, plastic. Quickly, I also want to mention, too, that it's so sickening to see on television all the commercials which interrupt the shows ever more. Much more time on television is taken in commercials. And And we really have people praying for cars, adoring cars, worshiping cars, these commercials, very heavy on the cars, very heavy on the drugs, very heavy on the medical stuff, very heavy on convincing you have medical problems, very heavy on cars, how awful it is. It's sort of like the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babylon, where people worshipped, idolized things that were wrong to worship. Not that I'm a religious person, but just to bring a metaphor in, the commercials are perverting and twisting the minds of people, bringing you into their idea of what should be in your mind. Very little indeed, what to worship, what to believe in, what to pray for. The smell of your new car, the engine of your new car, the look of your new car, promising you a life that will be fantastic if you have the car. It's so sickening, and it's getting so severe, ever more severe. Now, as far as the election goes, if you've listened to me before, you know that I'm coming to you from a very partisan point of view. I'm coming to you as an avid supporter of Hillary. Does that mean I would remain a supporter of Hillary forever if I found something out that would upset me? No. But at this time, I'm an avid supporter of Hillary, who has, by the way, at the moment that we're speaking, really caught her stride, so to speak, and is making wonderful speeches. In the past, her speeches were very wonderful, but very tedious. You felt like you were in a college lecture, and they were so chock full of so-called solutions that she's positing and actual practicalities, chock full of it. But they were a little bit not animated, and now they're getting much more simplified, but nevertheless chock full every second of things that she wants to do in very practical terms and how it could be achieved. Now, I'd like to say, yes, all right, so much is being made now of race, but I also want us not to forget, if possible, that there is great resistance to having a woman be president. Great resistance. When people talk about Hillary as a she-devil, and oh, do they, on talk radio, or as Mrs. Boobs Clinton, they are not necessarily talking about all the baggage she carries, which she does, those early years of getting that score of a lot of money in so-called cattle trades and futures market that was done for her by someone in Arkansas, and so many other things that people have pinned on her. So certainly that. And, also maybe something they detect in her personality. But what is it really that she's so determined, she's so sure of herself, she's so undeterred, and she will not be put down? And I believe that this is seen as a dominating thing, and women just can't be seen in that role of telling us what to do and being the boss. In spite of that, Hillary is more or less forcing us to get used to it. They've tried to put her away. They said, now, you know the P word that stands for females, that refers to their genitalia. They've said to her, the P word, go home, get out of this race, trying everything, which would not have happened were she not a woman. And she stands there and continues on forcing, shoving it, if you will, down our throats, making people get used to it, not to be deterred. And as I said, she's really hitting her stride, getting through to people lately where they're not feeling as alienated from her. On top of that, she's becoming a little more friendly and reachable and communicating seeming to people. You'll notice always that the pictures of her, like on Drudge Report and any places, many places, many newspapers will always take a frame of her, as you can get in video or in a quick shutter shot of her in a crazed or crazy-looking way. So many pictures, like the vast majority, show her in that kind of a light, which is so easy to get of anybody when you take a quick shot or a quick piece of a video. But I will tell you that if Hillary does succeed to become president, and we don't know, and that's not the point that I'm talking about now. I'm talking to you on the day before the Tuesday primaries of Indiana and North Carolina. But if in the end Hillary prevails, you know that this will signal to women that they won't be going to the kitchen, they won't be cleaning house, and they won't be worrying about their nails and hair only to the extent that they typically have been doing. This will usher in a whole new era that many people may be loath to see, and as I've explained before, many women will be loath to see. In fact, I remember now, I forgot her name, that sweet, she's not really sweet, but she speaks in sweet terms. She's a Republican writer. She said next time when Hillary runs, she'll wear a skirt in her gentle, sweetsy way, just to give you an example of women that can't be down with Hillary and what Hillary is trying to do. And Hillary really never cared about how she looked, though she's been looking pretty good, in my opinion, and some people's I know opinions. But as you know, her history was very plain as far as how she handled herself, just the basics, no makeup, no fancy stuff. And of course, in having to become a media personality like she is, little by little, and to be the president's wife originally, she has been dressed and groomed and given that kind of a look and image, which I believe she carries off well. But make no mistake about it, too. If you listen carefully to what Hillary is talking about, she is talking about a lot more regulation. And she is talking sort of about a form of socialism, which health care for everybody would be. And she is talking about getting at the oil companies. And you know, it's very interesting that people will rant and rave that the government has to be curtailed, that the government has to be has to have some of its powers taken away to tax people or to foist regulations on them or to control anything that's going on or to be the key arbiter. And yet nobody wants to touch even so-called working people. It's sacred to not touch corporations. Well, corporations are in fact the government today. And Hillary has been talking very strongly throughout this campaign about, for example, going after the oil companies and doing something by taxing them and not perhaps subsidizing them. Yes, they do still receive subsidies, but making this and a lot of other plans that would start producing some leverage on corporate America, which in fact is like the government, and which, considering the recent Wall Street scandals and the really, really careless, reckless way that banks did not monitor and control themselves, they've gone to the extreme of being unregulated. The airlines have gone to the extreme of being unregulated. So the country is no regulations, nobody's minding the store, and private enterprise is supposed to be so holy, even though it's monopolistic at the same time, and nobody wants to touch that. And yet, if Hillary gets to try to do some of the things she wants to do, this is exactly where she'll be headed if we are to believe her. It's also, you know, and so as I said in the beginning, just to talk about the race part, which is significant, I think we could even make a case that all things being equal, whether you really know a person or think you do or you don't, that you've got a real problem, or people have a real problem with a woman becoming president. And I know Massachusetts is quite significantly for Hillary per the last primary. And right in this state, I know people, acquaintances of mine, who don't understand why she's running, can't stand that she's running, believe she should never raise her voice, don't like the sound of her voice, don't like the sound of her laughter, see her as a woman of ambition. So there we go. And another thing is people are very loath to give her credit. She's dragged herself around. She's trooped around. She's gotten much better at her speeches. But people don't want to give credit that what she is saying is very huge, very interesting, very intricate, very knowledgeable. And if you're of the persuasion that you'd want to help middle and so-called working people, then you would be perhaps very interested and pleased by what Hillary has to say. Now, when I look at the difference in in the speeches between Hillary and Obama, even before she had hit her stride like now, because she's become more relaxed. She had to get more in touch with people. She was too aloof, so she's become much better. But when you look at them pound for pound and you listen to them, you will find that Hillary's stuff is way more chock full of stuff that she talks about, has a way of saying that she will try to achieve and understands the result of it to a great degree as much as possible. You will see that there is quite a bit more heavyweight actual content to what Hillary is saying. And I think that when she won Pennsylvania, she was just making a lot more sense to people. Maybe this idea of change and rhetoric, motivational speaking, that we can go higher and so forth, but not really saying what the path is to the higher or the whys of the higher. Maybe that wore off a bit, especially as economics press, and the meat of the matter is much more something people can bite into when the economics, etc., are pressing on them. So it does go back to this experience, which was very poorly delivered to make people understand in the beginning, ready on day one, and all this. The experience seemed to not matter, and so forth. Now, in terms of Barack Obama, thinking of the experience, I think maybe people are seeing that he is not quite experienced. He's kind of learning, so is Hillary learning, but he's learning some different lessons as he goes along the trail, and he is kind of young, and he did have a meteoric rise to where he is. Not much passed between where he started to where he is now, so he's not been really in the trenches anywhere near to the same extent, nor has he had as much hands-on experience with policy, beginning with the state of Arkansas, as did Hillary Clinton. Now, when Barack Obama ran for the Illinois State Senate, his opponent, I'd forgotten this, was Alan Keyes, so he virtually had no opponent at all. And also, when he was in the Senate there, 37 times he voted present instead of saying if he was for or against something, which again speaks to, what is it exactly, what is the meat of the matter. And another thing that Hillary Clinton emanates, especially these days, is that she's crazy about the country. She loves the country. And I'm not sure that people can feel that same sentiment in that same gut way from Barack Obama. And I'll tell you something, too. When we talk about working class and educated class, the elite and the working class, I'll tell you a little snippet of someone I knew in high school. After high school, she went to college, and she was studying sociology, and she found out in sociology that she was working class, that she never knew. And this was very upsetting to her, and I bet to a lot of people, to find out that they're so-called working class. It's kind of not a nice denotation, is it? But, sooner than race and even sooner than sex, I do believe, or gender, I should say, the class difference is a major difference in the country and in the world at large. And people accuse certain Democrats or certain persons of being class warfare people, but what we're really talking about to a great extent is issues of class, where if you've got the bucks, whoa, there's nothing that you can't do. If you ain't got the bucks, there's nothing you can do. So this is a very key point. Now, another thing is, too, Barack certainly had a hard life, I would assume, and I did read some about his mother, who's a very interesting figure, and he did have a hard life, not being with a father, having to live in Indonesia, having to live in Hawaii, having moved around, no father per se, and no real stable place that he was from. So in that sense, he did have a hard life. But in the sense of getting to where he got, I would have to take issue that things were so very hard for himself and Michelle in the times that they did go to Harvard and Princeton, because I know from my own experience coming up in one or two generations before even Barack or Michelle, it was very hard for a woman, which is when Hillary came up as well. I can remember that to get into graduate school, one of my professors told me that he got a call from a California school asking if I was a dog, i.e. was I a lousy-looking female, because females typically would take a couple years of training and then leave the program to get married. So these were the kinds of questions being asked. It was very much harder as a woman. In fact, when I came on the floor of a hospital way back then, I was the only woman, and with all men around who were doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, and so on. And if you were a woman, there was a price to be paid, that you couldn't really be yourself, that you had to become dry and lame and devoid of your femininity. So for this and for so many reasons, I can't say. And then there was a time when the country caught on to that we do need to bring up more people who are not getting into the system, for whom it has been very unfair. And there were floodgates opening, I would say, at the time that Barack and Michelle were trying to, colleges were reaching out to try to get people of certain races to come into their programs. Now, what I'd like to touch a little bit upon where we are with Barack Obama now, according to what I can tell, and of course he still may become the president. And if he is the president, I will fully support him, and maybe what I'm saying I will disregard and change my mind on as I watch him function into the future. But this is the best that I can see now, and I think that he was this unknown quantity. He wasn't vetted, because he made this real leapfrog. He made this big jump right into being a possible nominee for the presidency. And when things started coming out about him, not that he can't live with those and have those be subsumed and carry on, but it takes quite a while for people to get over the hump when they start finding out people. And I think many people were very surprised when they started to find out more about several of the issues that you're very familiar with, one of them being Trinity Church and the Reverend Wright. And why would this be so surprising to people? You know, myself, looking at Barack, I had sort of thought maybe these kinds of things were in his background, not just from guessing. Like I've said, if we're talking about just the racial matter and we're talking about a black candidate to become president, for my feeling, I would be much more secure with someone like an Al Sharpton, who a lot of stuff has so much stuff, and he's thought ill of by many people, by this, and well of as well. But so much is known, and he's worked through it, and he's a bulldozer. You can't move him. He knows where he stands, and he's certainly part of the whole mix, and he's outspoken. In fact, he even criticized Barack harshly last week, I believe it was, over the Sean Bell, which, by the way, is very curious, even though a couple of the officers apparently involved are African American themselves. This Sean Bell situation is indeed, I don't know enough about it to really make an opinion, but on the surface, it doesn't sit well on the surface view of it, the superficial view. But anyway, you see the difference in how much, if we're talking race, we know about an Al Sharpton, and how tough he is, too. He doesn't move, and yet he gets to say what he wants to say. He doesn't have to be on the fence about things, and he's vetted. But anyway, back to Trinity Church and the Reverend Wright. I have heard, though I wasn't able to find this in the limited time I had to look, that when you join the church, you must sign a document about black theology, black liberation theology, and that supposedly, according to certain talk shows on 96.9, Barack has signed one of those documents. And I want to take a look at black theology, which I'm going to say that perhaps we would be able to interpret according to the spirit of what it's saying, rather than make it fundamentally or literally to mean what it's saying. And this is the quotation that is so often brought out, talking about black liberation theology, the author being Professor Cohn, who's at one of the universities, I believe, alive and well in the country, and is in the philosophy department, I believe. And it says, and this is from his book, it says, black theology, but we would say black liberation theology, refuses to accept a God who is not identified totally with the goals of the black community. Understandable enough. Makes sense. If bad things are happening to black people, and Lord knows bad things have happened to black people. Unequivocally, very deep in my heart, I am not a bleeding heart for African Americans or African American causes, of which there must be. They have been separated. What do you expect them to do when you find out that people are separated on the basis of race? They've been separated on the basis of race. I know in my heart of hearts, in every bone of my body, that the pain, the struggle, the dishonor, the immorality is deep as it gets, and it's very great. There's no doubt of it. On the other hand, I'd also like to say that as a white person, if people who are black are willing to talk to me, willing to work with me, willing to be friends with me, I consider this a blessing. More power to me. This is great for me. But if I find that people want to exclude me or hate me or be against me because I'm white, to use an expression out of the black community, my feeling on that is homie, don't play. But I do understand how deep and rotten a problem this is. And it continues. And it might even be continuing in the case of Sean Bell. So, now the next sentence reads, if God is not for us and against white people, then he is a murderer and we had better kill him. Now, this could possibly mean, and I don't know in what sense it's meant, but it could mean that if you have a God that allows things to go on, as have gone on, just busting people because they're black, or sending them to jail way more because they're black, or in the past lynching them because they're black, or hanging nooses on their doors because they're black, if that's meant to mean that if this is okay and you go to church and this stuff is not criticized and not sorted out and you can live with this and it's an okay thing, then we can't accept the God that would be the dominator or the Lord over such a process. And I think when he says we'd better kill him, I would hope that he means we kill him in spirit. We kill this concept. We kill this concept of God. The task of black theology is to kill gods who do not belong to the black community. Black theology will accept only the love of God which participates in the destruction of the white enemy. And I'm hoping that it's meant here that part of white that is enemy to us, that thing we've seen as white that is our enemy, we have to get rid of this part. And I hope it's not meant in a true force of physicalism, but more, again, in the existential sense of spirit. And what we need is the divine love as expressed in black power, which is the power of black people to destroy their oppressors here and now by any means at their disposal. Unless God is participating in this holy activity, we must reject his love. Now, in a way, there's a little bit of similarity here, too, as I read this, to some of the fringe Islamic views of what must be destroyed and what God considers as okay or not okay. I remember once I didn't know this guy. I saw him on TV, and he had worked really hard. He was a black American. He had worked really hard all his life, and I think he was a poet. And I heard him say, if there's prejudice in heaven, I just don't know. In other words, that there is no justice. And if in the afterlife, if for all this struggle there's still no justice, then what is there? Okay, so now we know, so you could see where this would be a concern to people to hear this kind of thing, and we need more discussion of it rather than just sound bites. We've got to bring all these things to the table. And as has been said by many preachers I've heard on television since that time, this by no means represents the black church or the black community in general, even though Reverend Wright did put it forward in his talk about it as being the black church. Now, it was also brought out that Barack was so close and so integral in the church that in 2006 he gave $26,000 to the church, and the year before that $6,000. And it becomes like this. It becomes, show me your friends and I'll show you who you are. There is such a thing in life that you kind of don't hang around with the people that you think would be bad for you or would be bad in general. Even though, as many people have said, white and black together, that some of the things Reverend Wright was talking about were very eye-opening and of interest for people to hear. Not all in sum total, but many. Now, you look at that, you look at Reverend Wright, you look at Ayers, who is the guy that did the bombing in the 70s, he and his wife, and as it's the best that can be told is he's not been apologetic for it, and he held a fundraiser in his home for Barack when he was becoming the Illinois state senator, and Tony Resk, and he was on a board with him in a nonprofit organization, and so forth and so on. And Barack went to his home before that, and so on. I've looked into some of these things, and then I looked into Tony Rezko, who is a Syrian-born person in the United States with close ties to an Iraqi billionaire in Britain, and who has done some pretty interesting wheeling and dealing in Chicago, and Barack's association with him and his funding of Barack's campaign from early on is very intricate, and you can find out and read about that yourself. So, not to malign Barack Obama with this, but everybody has baggage. Everybody has lots of stuff that people can find out about them. And, of course, Barack being unknown, this stuff is only getting found out, and it takes a long time for the stuff to settle and the stuff to be put away or held against you forever. I think in some sense, some of it is being put away, especially by the young people and the so-called Chablis crowd or the faculty lounge people of the elite who are considered to be so favorable to Barack. And I will say, too, when Barack gave the last speech recently about cutting himself formally from Reverend Wright. And that was a very sad, sorry situation, wasn't it, what Reverend Wright did to Barack Obama? Not very nice, not very nice. But anyway, Barack said at that time that Reverend Wright was not a spiritual advisor of his in that last speech he gave when he cut him loose. But in his first book, he lists him as his spiritual advisor and close confidant. So you see that people are learning that politicians say things, and they have to say things, and they have to go this way and that way, and it's not particular to Barack, but he is that unknown quantity about whom we are learning. Now, as from a psychological point of view, let's look at Reverend Wright. It's been said by non-psychologists on TV a lot anyway. How did he use that moment to promote himself? Was that not a self-promoting moment for him to go out and give those public speeches as he did? And I think a case could be made that he wanted to actually hurt Barack Obama, which is a sad situation indeed. And I don't think it was because he wasn't invited to be right up with Barack when he was running for candidacy of the United States, but he was kept downstairs in a basement or so on to give the prayers in some more limited capacity. I don't think that's necessarily what got his ire and the need to get up there and do this to Mr. Obama. I think it was after Obama gave this first speech on race, and he was saying some things, you know, comparing him to a crazy old uncle and praising John F. Kennedy, which he has done not so much recently. And I think that more probably got to the Reverend Wright. And by the way, I'm not particularly fond of John F. Kennedy. I'm not particularly fond one way or another of Caroline Kennedy. And I have thought that Ted Kennedy has been a pretty good senator for the state. I was very not happy to see what he did in throwing Hillary overboard, but I'm not a particular Kennedy fan myself. But Barack certainly was up till recently. And he mentioned Bobby Kennedy, he mentioned John Kennedy. And so you think, well, maybe he's a role model, or maybe he's wanting people to make those associations. If you remember when the Reverend Wright gave that speech at the National Press Club, he actually was mocking the famous statement by John Kennedy, "Ask not what your country can do for you." And he was saying, "Ask not what you can," you know. And another thing I took away from Wright that I can't get over is when he goes, "No, no, 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 no." I find myself doing that a lot, and I'm not even thinking of him. I go, "No, no, 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 no," the way he did so many times. But anyway, he mocked John Kennedy. See, this leads me to believe he was angered by what he heard in that big speech that Barack made about race. And he mocked how white people pray to Jesus. He said they stand there like this, and that black people get up and move around, and so forth and so on. Okay, now, the other thing, so a little bit on the psychology of Reverend Wright, and boy, what was a pretty outrageous move on his part. Another thing is that Reverend Wright has been associated with Minister Farrakhan, who is an interesting figure, no doubt, an interesting figure. But two parts that concern me, not knowing a lot about him. Number one is the division between male and female. Again, homie don't play, not to use a black expression, but it says it so well. I don't go for that when I see it. Just not my cup of tea, that's for sure. And secondly, when you map out who are your oppressors and where the problems are and how you're not going to get relief, but instead of just explaining it, you turn them into devils. You turn them into devils to make your case. That's the part that I consider is twisting the knife a little too far, a little too twisted for my taste. And the one that bowled me over biggest about Barack Obama is when he made the so-called bitter comment. That blew me away when he said that people in small towns in the Midwest are bitter because they lost jobs 25 years ago, haven't gotten them back, and so they cling to religion and to guns. I said, wow. And the fact that he was saying that to very wealthy people in a closed room of donors to his campaign in San Francisco gave it that extra enhancement, and that bothered me greatly. On the other hand, one of my friends, when I told her about it, said, "So what does that mean?" They didn't even understand what the statement means, as probably, but when you're reading between the lines, you see that it is sort of a condescending, and certainly, in my opinion, I mean, do black people who are so religious and cling to religion as their lifeblood, do they do that only because they are oppressed? And as many songs of black religion say, that religion saves them. But do they cling to it because they are oppressed? No. But it is the one place they can get their heads thinking correctly of how to go, how to be, and from where to get their strength and courage. Now Barack is a smooth and easygoing enough guy, but the one I have concerns about of the couple trying to win the presidency is Michelle Obama. She does concern me, especially because Barack used to point out a lot that she has very big influence on him. And I think she's made a lot of complaints in her earlier speeches to crowds that, she and Barack have a really tough time, and they didn't have enough money, where to scratch the money together to put the kids in camp and give them ballet lessons. And really, when you look at that, considering that they made $2 million, almost $2 million, or a little more than $2 million in 2006, and that they did get through the floodgates and have a very nice life, that's a little bit odd because most people cannot afford to send the kids to camp and cannot afford to pay for ballet lessons and aren't even thinking, they're wondering how to pay for gas. So that's a bit strange. And at one time when she was talking, after it was brought out that Dick Cheney is a distant relative when they do those genealogical searches. And she was talking to some people, and she mentioned that, and she said about the money, she says, give me some here. And I didn't find that, you know, very pleasing or you know, a nice-mannered way to go about talking about things. And then also she has said that this is a mean country, that it's a country of sloths and cynics, and that our souls are broken, and that it'll never be the same if Barack is president, that they will make everybody work hard. And then the most famous one, that she wasn't proud to be an American until that certain point in time in her whole adult life, So, well, that's understandable that she might say that, just speaking nonchalantly and not trying to manage what she's saying. But when you have a president, and I'm very critical of George Bush, I'm very critical of the war, I'm very critical of the government, I'm very critical of Republican policies, I'm very critical even of a lot of the military goals, though I know we need a military. And when I meet someone who's been in the military, I'm awed. When you really meet them, even though you're criticizing from afar, you're like, oh my God, you were in Iraq. It makes you just really sort of venerate them. But when you want a president who, at least formally, loves the country, and is unequivocally proud. Now, maybe if I were black, maybe I would feel that's not a qualification that I need. You know, I would have a different point of view. And I think Michelle Obama would be better spoken, or even Barack, if they were to say, we've had a good life, and we've got a lot out of this life so far, and now we want to talk to all the people, black and white, who do not have a good life. Now, that would make sense, instead of saying how hard their life has been and how hard it's been to get money for camp and ballet lessons. And and also, well, I won't even bring that up. Well, I will bring this up. I don't know how it comes in here, but, well, I won't bring that part up. Never mind that. Okay, now, the other thing is, finally about this, I think we're almost, yes, finally about this, is that when Barack just uses so much about change and so much lofty rhetoric, as I said before, it's kind of indiscriminate what it is exactly he's going to be doing, and people continue to still search for that, especially when you compare him to Hillary, who's over there telling you, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and this I'm going to do, this. That's how she talks. Okay, and that Hillary has made, the reason she can come on and go for the national health care and go for attacking pharmaceutical companies who are making unbelievable profits, and oil companies, because she has made alliances prior to them being taken away in what turned out to be something she never anticipated in this election. But she has made all those corporate alliances, which I hope would hold steady if she ever did become the president, to do something about these things with alliances within this corporate structure called the United States of America. And also, Hillary is boldly favorable to the military, no two ways about it, and that hits a lot of people well. And also, Hillary is a very heavy-duty hitter. As she says, you can knock her down, but she'll be right back up again. And I think, generally, too, both are learning. Barack is learning things that he could imagine them, I suppose, but he's learning them firsthand. And Hillary had to learn from being more distant from people, that she had to get right down into the ring and get right with the people and talk in more direct one-to-one terms with them. So anyway, so much for that. Some of my thoughts that we shall see. Any of these thoughts I have could change. They're the best I have to go on for the time that we are in now. Now, the other thing I wanted to bring up today is the state of the United States, about our comfort and materialistic status as we experience it now. I have a comfortable couch. I have food to eat, plenty of food. I can make choices. Which food do I want? Many of us can choose which car do we want, where are we going for breakfast, which carpet we want, all kinds of things. When we're too hot, we can put on air conditioning. When we're too cold, we can put on heat. When we need to dry our hands, we can just reach for trees, which are paper towels, trees, and just use a ton of them and throw it away. And that to use, no, Reverend Wright, the chickens are coming home to roost. It's not going to stay like this all the time. So I want us to leave on this idea that what we have going on now, for example, the salmon they just didn't show up on the Northwest coast. They just didn't show up this year. And the scientists don't have a clue. And guess what? No offense to the scientists. I hope you can understand why I say this. But the scientists, generally speaking, don't have a clue. And we have studies galore, and yet so much in medicine is going awry, so much in health is going awry, so much in the youth is going awry, so much with violence is going awry. So much sexually transmitted disease, so much bad air, polluted water. So no, generally science has not brought us to a good spot, and nor to a valid spot. And that's something maybe we can talk about sometime else. There is a true science, but do we have it? So scientists don't have a clue. And the sky is falling. Now sometimes, like one night when I'm having some pure jam, it's no sugar, just the fruit made into a jam, and I'm putting it on this beautiful, perfect white bread, not the Wonder Bread, because the Wonder Bread, you'll need so much more of it to make you full, and it will be very caloric. It's very caloric, inch for inch, ounce for ounce, compared to whole bread, just natural bread, flour, water, yeast. And plus, you don't feel full until you eat a ton of it, and it's very fattening. So, but I was eating some nice bread, and I'm sitting there thinking at night, all alone, I'm thinking, wow, this is really freaky, that the bees are gone, and they have to pollinate to make things grow, and I'm just enjoying this, and the price of food is going up, and how people don't even understand that food itself is at a premium, and food itself, this is not going to go on forever. This is not going to go on in the United States of America. It doesn't go on in Haiti. In Haiti, people eat dirt, and they've been eating dirt for years. In Bangladesh, people don't eat at all. In a lot of parts of India, people don't eat. In Africa, people starve to death. And we're sitting here, oh, yeah, I'll have some of this jam, put my foot up, I got my remote. Hey, what happens when the power goes out? What happens when the electricity doesn't work? And believe me, I won't even consider some scenarios by which that could happen. We are so vulnerable. And what happens when the rest of the world owns everything, as they do, the jobs, which Hillary Clinton is making a lot of intricate proposals of how to keep those jobs here and make more of them. She has a huge information on that, of what she would do. But when all the jobs, the real jobs that make stuff, not just the service economy, are everywhere else, and all the debt that we owe, and the debt just keeps on accumulating, is owned by people in other countries, what do you think? Who do you think's controlling the food supply? Who's controlling even the environmental situation, for that matter? We are not the be-all and end-all. We could be. We've gone a long way from that, but we don't have a clue. And the best that television has to offer us is to show us these cars that we think we should buy, these medicines that we think we should buy, all these perverse things to fill our head, and all these things in the videos telling the kids to drink alcohol and showing the kids to use guns. And could we ask the rap moguls maybe to, like Russell Simmons and even Ludacris, Jay-Z, P. Diddy, to stand up and say, stop it with the guns, stop it with the guns, this isn't funny, this isn't funny, this is a horrible situation. situation with the guns. So we think we're actually breaking up into factions in this country. We are breaking up into factions, and we're actually becoming different kinds of gangs in this country against each other. And the food situation, and the money situation, and the gas situation. So I'd like us to have a little more gratefulness when I have, not always, but when I have a great meal, something simple, but I just get to eat it and I'm hungry and I'm sitting and nobody's bothering me and I can have the TV on like I like it or listen to some music like I like it and I don't have too many pains or whatever at the moment. I'm like, wow, am I lucky? How did I get this lucky? What did I do to get so lucky? And furthermore, what am I doing to help what is not lucky? Not very much. Not very much. And very more is not lucky than is lucky. Okay. So, let's see if we have anything else critical to bring out. We do, but we can't. I just say to the kids, how much time? Yeah. I see now with landscaping so many people using those wood chips. Those wood chips are toxic that people put to make things look a certain way, and they suffocate the soil. And the earthworms can't be in there turning the soil and the microorganisms. Now, why can't we be teaching our youth, go show them earthworms on a farm, show them really firsthand how they digest and make the material that makes soil fertile, how we're losing the soil, take them out to the farms and take them and show them how something starts from point A and gets to point B. Why can't we be educating our kids better? Why is the best thing we have for them guns? And why aren't we more practical instead of the MCAS and so on? And you can't tell me kids, and Reverend Wright had things to say, black kids, white kids, he was talking about differences and how they learn. You can't tell me kids, any kind of kids, black, white, would be so... If you get them young, you got to get people young, would be so amazed, their eyes would be wide open to see natural phenomena as they really occur, getting them hooked, chemistry, getting them to see how things react with each other. We've got to do a much better job and get rid of the guns. Okay, and so kids, if you're out there watching, to study and to open the kids up to things to see and know right from day one, including how to manage their finances and what a dollar is, what a quarter is. And kids, look around. I know it's hard to see because the TV and everything around you only says commercialism. It only says you need to buy a Toyota, own a gun, and drink Cavassier. And let's finally remember about animal research. Cloning is so bad, animals suffer greatly. Like 99% more than that die, and they suffer terrible deaths because most of the animals that are cloned get born half dead, deformed, all kinds of disease, etc. And it's very, very suffering, this cloning research. And also look for animal welfare approved stamp, and you can find that on the internet whenever you think about buying meat or buying products, animal welfare approved. And I'll have that in the edited version of this show. So that's about all I can say right now. Expose the kids. Show them how the plumbing works. I mean, I still to this day don't really get how the toilet flushes, how the water goes up to the top floor. Why can't we be showing where the water goes in the city? Why can't we be showing these things to our kids and really training them and getting them interested? And I guarantee you they'd like it more even than blowing people away in video games and in life. So... now I'd like to end with singing a song to you. Oh, I know what I'll do. I will just remove this. Hush, little baby, don't you cry. You know your daddy was born to die. All my my trials, Lord, soon be over. If religion were a thing that money could buy, the rich would live and the poor would die. All my trials, Lord, soon be over. I had a little book, it was given to me, and every word spelled liberty. All my trials, Lord, soon be over. Too late, my brother, too late, but never mind. All my trials, Lord, soon be over. Joshua won the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Yes, man, Joshua won the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He's tramping round the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He's marching with truth and justice, with a mighty and swift sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. Old Stubble was a racehorse, and I wish he were mine. He never drank water, he only drank wine. I bet on the gray horse, I bet on the bay. If I'd bet on old Stubble, I'd be a rich man today. If I had hammer, I'd hammer in the morning, I'd